Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. It's an age-old problem, rowdy teenagers causing trouble. In Kingston, the issue in Midtown has become so bad that one person has decided to do something about it. Joining us on Kingston Now is that person, Janai McDonough. Hi, Janai.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. What is going on in your neighborhood? What's happening?
Well, it started out with just the kids coming and running through yards and things like that, not having no respect. We would yell at them, tell them to go, and then all of a sudden these teenagers decided that the park right down the street from us was their turf. They started looking in windows, they started throwing rocks at houses, threatening. One incident occurred where a child was playing basketball and they assaulted him. Another child was playing with her sisters in the park. They assaulted her while she was holding her baby sister. It got to the point where we were afraid. I mean, these are children, these are teenagers, and they were terrorizing us. We got to the point where it was an everyday occurrence. We were calling police, and we just kept hearing there's not a whole lot that we can do because they're under the age of 16. They can't really arrest them. They could take them and have their parents pick them up, and that's kind of all that they can do at that point. But when a child was held down in the middle of the street and a high-powered CO2 cartridge gun was used and BBs were shot at close range at the child, and they screamed at him to go back to Mexico, I ran out of the house and I grabbed him, I brought him into the house, and if you've never had to pick BBs out of the neck, back, leg, and arm of a child, just consider yourself lucky. It was horrendous. I banded together with the rest of my neighbors, and we decided that we were going to start writing letters because we can't live like this anymore. It escalated to the point where we were afraid for our children. The marijuana use, the drug use on our street, and this is by the same group of kids. So we wrote the letter, and
who did you write to?
Well, actually, we sent a letter to the mayor. We sent a letter to DA Carnwright. We sent one to the chief of police and the freeman, in the hopes that maybe somebody would say, okay, well, let's go see what's going on. And lo and behold, we actually got a response from Carnwright, and he brought with him the police, and we had a meeting at my house with, there were probably a good 40 people there, and I have a very small living room. So we were all squished in there in 90-degree weather, and I was very pleased just to have any kind of response. They beefed up the security around our area. They beefed up the police presence, and it worked. It worked. It absolutely worked. We came together as a community. We decided that we were going to be united in the fact that we were not going to put up with this anymore. And we accomplished that. And I think if we accomplish that here, we should be able to do that for every block of Kingston. Every neighborhood should feel the same way, that they have a voice, and that if they join together, they'll be able to take care of the situation. So that's where it stands at this point.
So the neighborhood right now, is it still receiving that kind of attention from the city?
It is, actually. We have gotten a patrol. Once a night they'll come and they'll patrol. They've started telling the kids that if they're out past dusk at the parks that they have to go home, which for a while never really happened. So they are coming in and they are making their presence known. And just yesterday they came, which, this doesn't fall under the category of, you guys have to leave, or they came and handed out popsicles to the kids in the neighborhood, which I thought was fantastic. To see the police cruiser pull up and pull out a big bag of popsicles to hand out to these kids, that says that we're your friend. We're not, we're not telling you can't play at the park. We're just telling you to play at the park, and I like that. I like the fact that they're so involved and they want to be involved and they want to help. But the funding isn't there, and they're understaffed, and it's a hard situation for them. It really is.
Have you ever done anything like this before, where you said, I've got to do something myself or it's not going to get done?
I have not.
How does that feel?
I have not. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's a scary thing to stand up.
Brave too.
Well, I have a lot of stake in the future of the city. I have 3 children that are growing up here. I want my children to be able to bring their children back here and raise them. And as it stands right now, I'm afraid. I'm afraid for the future of the city that my children live in. And I want to make a difference. I want to make a change in that. And a lot of times people are afraid to say something because they're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid that, they could be targeted by these same individuals because they took a stand. But if you live in fear, they win. If you sit and you do nothing, they win. If you don't look after your neighbor and your neighbor's children, they win. And I wasn't going to let that happen.
It's very powerful stuff. You started with a letter. You ended
Yes.
up with the Ulster County DA and the police department in your living room.
Yes.
And then you progressed to a community meeting at the Boys and Girls Club, right, in Midtown?
Yes.
Tell me about that meeting.
It was a good meeting. I mean, we had a lot of people there with a lot of ideas, and we need ideas. We need action, but we need ideas because you can't take action until you have something to base it off of. It was great that so many people from the community came because they're the ones that are going to make the difference in the long run. I mean, you can have as many community leaders in there as you want, but unless you have the community behind that, it's not going to make a difference. So it was really refreshing to see people there, to see that they are plugged in and that they are worried and that they want to help. So that was really, it was really good.
Are you surprised at the reaction you've gotten so far? Are you surprised that your letter didn't fall on deaf ears?
I'm not, actually, because so many in our community have felt the same way for so long. And to be the one that said something, it feels good. It does. It feels good to be able to say that I've done this for my friends and neighbors.
We're talking with Janai McDonough, and this is Kingston Now. Next, we're going to talk with Kingston Neighborhood Watch founder Mike Darcy about his organization and what they're doing. Welcome back to Kingston Now. We're talking about troubled teens in Midtown Kingston, and with us is Mike Darcy, founder of the Kingston Neighborhood Watch. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
First, before we get into this particular issue, tell me about the Neighborhood Watch and how it got started.
The Neighborhood Watch was formed last year. It was formed as a reaction to a couple of violent events, from the shooting in Midtown to a friend of ours who was mugged on the corner of St. James and Wall. And my wife and I did a bunch of research to find out what sort of programs are in the city Neighborhood Watch-wise, and we couldn't find any. So I spent the entire night up and created one by, I would say, 12 in the afternoon the next day.
So you stayed up all night long and
yeah.
came up with the idea.
That's
How
correct.
was it initially received? Tell me.
It was received well. We had organized meetings, we had walks, and lots of participation. Currently, our Facebook page has more members than the Ulster County Chamber of Commerce. I think it's at 1,670 at this point. Actual members we have are about 200, and we've been spending the last few months doing internal organization, where we filed for our federal not-for-profit status, and we're now moving forward from there.
Did you expect it to get this big when you started it?
No, it was requested of us to become a citywide thing because of the way that we had organized it and the amount of publicity and noise that we were making. So we accommodated some needs, and we're still accommodating those needs. Whereas we have a representative from the Neighborhood Watch in each of the 9 districts within the city, and then those districts have certain blocks and neighborhoods that have representatives from the Neighborhood Watch in them as well.
How does the Neighborhood Watch function? Like, what is the day-to-day presence in Kingston?
Day-to-day operation is just keeping track of the police blotter, what's going on, monitoring people who are getting into trouble on a repeated basis. The day-to-day operations for normal members are just being more aware of their surroundings. Don't be complacent and stay behind a closed door. Sort of take a look outside and see what you see, and then report those accordingly. You shouldn't have to be afraid to report on crime, and people are, and they're justifiably so. They're afraid to report on crime. So we try and give them an avenue to make it a little bit easier for them to police their own community.
Though by no means are you advocating people take action
Absolutely,
themselves. Right?
absolutely not.
What is that process? If someone sees something, what do they do?
Well, they immediately our first response is to call the Kingston Police Department or the Ulster County Sheriff's Department. Both organizations are doing their very best to work together to combat what's going on in the city, because both are underfunded and understaffed. On top of that, we've created, with the help of the Sheriff's Department, a form that you can fill out that describes individuals, vehicles, actions, things like that. So if you see a crime taking place, you can anonymously fill out this form and then forward that to the appropriate people.
How has your working relationship with the Kingston Police Department been?
It's fantastic. It was better than anything I anticipated. During one of the Common Council meetings last year, someone had asked me that very same question, and I said, well, it's good the higher-ups are talking to me, but I would like to get more patrolmen. And immediately after that, 12 patrolmen had me in a conference room and were giving me their numbers and saying, what can we do to help, and just offering any assistance that they could give. And to this day, they still offer that.
So how did you become aware of what was going on in Midtown with Janai McDonough and her situation?
I read it, well, first of all, I was told about it, and then I read about it through the Freeman, and I wanted to make sure that she was informed that there was an organization in place that might be able to help her with numbers, because really what it is, it's a power in numbers game where people like Janai have to have a nice support group around them to empower them to be able to act and feel comfortable doing so.
And now, as the immediate issue in that particular neighborhood has sort of diminished a little bit, and it seems like the intent is to spread it more citywide, what will your involvement be?
Well, what we're doing now is, now that we have done our internal organization and things are to a level where we can start doing activities and events and things like that, we're going to have community walks again. We're also going to be doing a couple of rallies to sort of get the city officials, Common Council, the mayor, to recognize that the city of Kingston residents want to stand together and say, look, there is a problem here. Our police force is understaffed. We have no funding to do these things, and we're here to help. But they also have to be as helpful as they can be, maybe getting a little creative on how they can acquire funding for the city, because we can't allow things like all these shootings that are taking place week after week and back to back to continue on. At this point, it's time for them to realize that the citizens of the city stand united, and that we are all going to make a noise to get them to listen to us any way, shape, form, or fashion.
It seems like in the little over a year that you've been together, you've had a nice impact in Kingston. Have you seen organizations like this in other cities really make a huge difference?
I have. I'm in contact right now with an organizer from the USA on Watch, and that's a branch of the National Sheriff's Association. And Robbie Porterman is her name, and she is getting me in contact with other neighborhood watches that have really made a difference in their communities. So I'm in the process of networking and doing that. It would be nice to know what other communities do and how they work with the police force, whether they have ways to communicate with the dispatcher, rapid communication, and this way when we're on patrols we can see things and report them immediately and have them respond at the same time.
We're talking with Mike Darcy of the Kingston Neighborhood Watch, and you're watching Kingston Now. In a moment, a plan of action for resolving some of these issues with Janai McDonough and Mike Darcy. This is Kingston Now, and we're talking with Mike Darcy of the Kingston Neighborhood Watch and Midtown resident Janai McDonough about troubled teens in the neighborhood. Now, Janai, you seem to have gotten the area around your house pretty settled,
yes.
And Mike is now involved. Let me ask you, when Mike first called you, what was that? How did you feel when someone reached out like that?
I was excited. It was very exciting to know that there were others out there that wanted to help and that had the resources. It was a good feeling. It really was, to know that you're not alone. And we had felt for such a long time on that street that we were just by ourselves, and we had to figure it out. And to know that we have other people backing us and tell us, okay, well, this is what we can offer you. We're here to help. Just call us. That is a really terrific feeling.
And what is the working relationship now?
We're in the get to know each other phase,
Yes.
and you know, she's educating herself on the tools that we have to offer and some of the things that we've done in the past, which is important. It's also important to have community leaders, the people who are elected officials, including the DA, inform people like Janai that there is an organization there that can help them out. She shouldn't have to feel like, no one should have to feel like they're alone or trapped or isolated or anything like that. There are people that are just common citizens that are there to help each other and hold each other's hands through hard times and situations. That's what it's like to be a community. So that's we're in the get to know the community phase.
Well, this issue was raised at a pretty opportune time because it's election season.
Yes.
And I noticed that after the meeting at the Boys and Girls Club, a bunch of the potential candidates for mayor, and some of the alderman people, started endorsing your idea.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What's that like?
Well, you know, I had said at the last meeting, honestly, I didn't really care why they decided to jump on board, whether it was political, whether it was to further their political career. Just the fact that they recognize that this is an issue. It is a quality of life issue. It's an issue for our children and our elderly, that people are living in fear. And they decided to do something about it. To me, I don't care why they did it, as long as they're helping our community. And they need to continue to help. They need to continue to put forth the effort and the concern, because if you don't feel as if your elected officials are concerned about what's going on with you, your family, and your neighbors, then you have absolutely no faith in those officials. So it's important, and I think it's good. I think it's good, because if the communication's there, I'm all about talking.
And it certainly helps to raise the profile even higher if candidates are trumpeting this as an issue. Yes. On a more regular basis.
Yes.
What is the next step for you guys? What happens next?
Well, next we have we're going to be planning on having a rally at City Hall to draw more awareness to not just the Neighborhood Watch, but to bind the community together as a whole. We want to make sure that people are aware that there are others out there that are able to help them. And that's one of the goals. And we also want to make sure that they understand that we know how understaffed the police are, how underfunded the police are, and that we want to be there to help them. I mean, we're a community that can bind together to accomplish a greater goal. And I guess they need to be made aware of that again.
Are you surprised, Janai, about your involvement going beyond the solving of your own local issue? I mean, here you are now, your neighborhood is better.
Yes.
But now you're going to be going to City Hall and trying to spread this citywide.
Yes, because I believe that if it can happen on my street, it can happen on every single street in the city, and that everyone deserves that. Children deserve to be able to play. People should be able to live without fear in their homes, and play in their yards without having to worry about gunshots.
We're talking with Janai McDonough and Mike Darcy, and we'll be back in just a moment on Kingston Now. Welcome back to Kingston Now. We're talking with Janai McDonough of Midtown Kingston and Mike Darcy of the Kingston Neighborhood Watch. What do you think has changed in kids since, when we were kids? Because I was, rambunctious, and I think we all had our moments as kids. What do you think has changed in kids?
Parental supervision.
You think it's that?
I think
yeah?
so.
Mm-hmm.
I think parents in this day and age my personal opinion is that parents are taxed. They are working, they're struggling to get by, they're doing anything they can to put food on the table, and that might mean that you have to sacrifice being able to keep a watchful eye on your kids from time to time. In my opinion, it's not blaming them, but it's just recognizing that it's a very difficult time to live in Kingston and just have a family in general throughout the entire country.
And Janai, what do you think?
I think at this point, kids aren't like we were because they're adults.
Mm-hmm.
They have the adult mentalities because a lot of them are raising themselves. A lot of them, we used to have the term latchkey kid when we were younger and our parents worked, and we would come home and do our homework till mom or dad got home. And now you have the gangs in the streets, and they're influencing these kids. They're influencing them, and they're making it seem glamorous. because what they're doing is fear-based, and to them, fear equals respect. And we have to get it back to the point where these kids look at us and say, you know, that's not what I want for my life. I don't respect that. I don't want to live that way. And it definitely has to start at home.
And that segues into a whole nother thing where a lot of these people that are in these gangs that are here in Kingston aren't from Kingston, and they're influencing the children of Kingston residents. And it's so horrible, it's so bad. The children of these people need to stand up and say, you're an outsider here and all you're doing is bringing trouble. The shooting that happened last week, that was 2 people from Brooklyn. They're not Kingston residents, and they're bringing trouble to Kingston.
What do you each hope what do each of you hope happens here in this particular situation?
Well, I think that we need to be more community-based. The community needs to gather together, become one voice, and say that this is it. We're not going to stand for this. Our gang's bigger than yours, and we're going to make you leave.
And I just encourage the citizens of Kingston to be more engaged. Engage with your politicians, engage with City Hall, and engage with each other, because together we're going to make a difference. If we continue to live in isolated little islands of pockets, nothing's going to get accomplished. It is time to stand up and do something about it.
It's a terrific message. Thank you both.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of Kingston Now. Thanks to Janai McDonough of Kingston and Mike Darcy of the Kingston Neighborhood Watch. I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time on Kingston Now.